As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
I hate to start negative, but I have two negative stories here, and I'm going to put them back to back. So I may not introduce them both at the same time. Let's start with one. Let's start with Call of Duty in the news in kind of a negative way here. And the headline, I think to no one's surprise, is Call of Duty Vanguard sales were lower than Black Ops Cold War in 2020. This came out of Activision Blizzard releasing their financial results. It showed that the Vanguard installment in the Call of Duty franchise performed less well year over year than Cold War did in 2020. It saw a decline on PC and on console. Engagement in Warzone was down. And Call of Duty Mobile, though, seems to still be thriving. Players in the last year spent more than $1 billion. So, I think most of us agreed that Vanguard would be not a failure, but at least not as strong of an entry, and that Call of Duty feels like it's a bit on the decline. Does anyone draw this conclusion here? Like, what conclusion can we draw from this, considering how important Call of Duty is to Activision Blizzard and therefore how important it is to Microsoft here?
Well, I think it's a little early to call it to call the death of Call of Duty, because even in a down year, it's still one of the biggest shooters and best sellers. And I think Warzone continues to do pretty well, and the mobile version is doing pretty well. I think it's interesting in the broader shooter market. I mean, we talked a lot over the summer heading into this fall about how we're going to have a little bit of a battle royale amongst the shooter genre with Battlefield, Call of Duty, and Halo Infinite. And really, all of them underperformed. So I don't know what to make of that, but Battlefield was a disaster. Call of Duty was, I guess, a little bit less of a disaster, but still bad. And Halo Infinite had a good launch, but has kind of fizzled out from what I've seen. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I just think it's interesting.
It's a great point. But to me, this is not surprising. I think I called all of them. Why can no one point to product and say maybe the product's just not that good? Right? Like we're all looking for like this complex reasoning and business explanation, and the marketing was bad, or this was bad, or the management, or this. Like we can spend an hour discussing 1,200 different ways, reasons why these franchises have struggled. Does anyone think it could just be because no one has really innovated in this genre, and maybe players are a little bit tired of it?
I don't want to speak for all the gamers out there at all, or all the FPS fans, but I also I think it's more so that Warzone and why would you play Vanguard when you can play online with your friends? I just don't see that being as exciting anymore. And I'm wondering if they'll sort of just start to focus more on Warzone and on mobile and kind of give up the $60 box copy games, because they don't seem to be that exciting.
Vanguard still has multiplayer, right?
It does have multiplayer, just no BR. Yeah.
As we think about the Activision acquisition by Microsoft, I mean, that's one of the first things that kind of came to my mind, is that when you move the game into Game Pass, you really don't need to sell a $60 box copy anymore, because it's a subscription, it's a service. So you're almost better suited not having to have all the developers to do that yearly version, albeit you're giving up a lot of sales each year, but it might be better for the brand and better long-term for the IP if you get rid of that every year kind of grind to make the game and just make it a live service game. I mean, that's kind of what they've done with Warzone. I think you are more likely to see that from Microsoft than to see it go exclusive to Xbox, which I know is something that's been debated,
But
from here to the moon.
Jeff, to your point, Game Pass sort of absolves the publisher of many sins, right? Like, meaning the game could be a failure. If it's on Game Pass, it sort of gets obfuscated, right? You sort of don't care. It's not, the numbers aren't necessarily broken out, right? You may not know how many players specifically are playing Halo, for example, and so we don't really know if Halo's a success or not, right? You mentioned it, but only in the context of Steam numbers, correct? Right? Like, because I don't think anyone knows the numbers on Game Pass of people who are playing Halo. Is this maybe the best part of Game Pass that we don't, from a public company perspective, they don't really need to know how well an individual game is doing as long as Game Pass's subscriptions are growing. No one's going to fault them if fewer people play Call of Duty this year versus Halo next year.
It helps. I mean, diversification.
But it's more like it allows for it to be a bit more of a black box, right? Jimmy, you were nodding your head. I don't know.
No, I'm just kind of trying to put my thoughts together. I'm a COD player. I've been a COD player for a long time, and I would argue that the COD user base is very loyal and has very minimal overlap with other games, right? I don't want to take away from the Game Pass argument because I think it's interesting. But I just wanted to say, like, when Vanguard comes out or when other CODs have came out, I remember, over 10 years ago with the first Modern Warfare and the first Black Ops, and then they went into a cycle of just putting out really bad games. And that was kind of the premise of the story. And your first question, Paul, was, is this just a trash game? When do we just blame the title and blame the lack of innovation? I left COD back then because of the lack of innovation. They came out with some futuristic fighting stuff that I just wasn't really into, and it wasn't the Modern Warfare or the Black Ops that I was used to. I left this most recent time because of the hacking and the lack of protection for the community. And I went to Apex. I love Apex. It's still great. And I'm playing a lot of Halo now, and I'll probably leave Halo soon because they don't have any Battle Royale. So, I'm not sure. I don't think any one game is offering everything to their community. I think for COD fans, it's hard because what do you go to if not Call of Duty? And especially if they're going to slow down their yearly release cycle into something less frequent. But to Jeff's point, honestly, if I'm a Game Pass holder and there are other FPSs on Game Pass, like the reason why I went to Apex was because it was free to play, I'm gonna probably try them out if the game that I like, the mechanics that are familiar to me, all of those things that I like, just because it's a familiar IP and familiar movement and styles. But again, if the innovation is lacking or if they're not protecting their community, then that's why I'm gonna leave. So we all called this isn't a surprise. We knew Vanguard was going to be a flop, at least in comparison to the last 3 releases, which were very hot for Call of Duty. For me, it's more so, we're still talking about what's that next big game that's going to take the mantle the way Fortnite did, the way PUBG started with. I don't want to say started with, but Fortnite, PUBG, Valorant had its time in the spotlight, I think, for a little bit. And honestly, I don't know, because as these games get more and more innovative and as the developers have more and more money, I think we're just going to see a lot of mid-tier games and no true king anymore.
Chris has a good take here. Do you guys agree with him?
Let me get caught up. Heather said, I just think a parent thinks esports gaming is easier for them to understand the Common Core. Heather, totally agree. I think that's what we ended on. SEO says, how are you guys doing? SEO, we're doing great. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Chris says FPS today equals fighting games genre of 2000s, glut of mediocrity killing the scene. I'm with you, Chris, 1,000%. I mean, this is my point about product. The product's just not that good, and I think the developers at most of these AAA studios got fat and lazy, right? Not literally, obviously, but meaning like. It was they figured everyone's just going to buy Call of Duty every year, so it just doesn't need to be that good, right? It just needs to look a little different, play a little different. One new map that's inspired by some map from 10 years ago, and then ship it, right? And so I think people most of these developers really did just get fat and lazy and not feel any need to innovate whatsoever in this genre. Brandon says Fortnite has outlasted a lot of titles. The age group it attracts makes it such a good option for younger kids that want to start getting competitive. I can barely build a fort, but it's fun.
Great point. Brandon's a smart guy. That's why I work with him.
I will say, though, I think Fortnite is bungling it big time, and it's definitely on the decline, right? It's on the same decline path as Call of Duty. And from a revenue standpoint, pretty significant decline if we buy the Epic Game Store numbers that came out. And they're missing the whole boat on Metaverse completely. Like Roblox is eating Fortnite's lunch right now. So I'm not bullish at all on Fortnite, even though they still are surviving and still generating, relatively speaking, a lot of revenue. Just definitely not peak Fortnite. Chris says, but are we also reaching the peak of the demo? Interesting how Valorant hasn't seen growth either. I mean, do you guys think it's a question of the demographics here, or is there a breakthrough game that changes this? I guess, Chris, to put the question back on you, right? Is there a game that changes the trajectory for FPS games? Because I don't think the genre has lost its appeal, and I don't think the demographic is so narrow that like people are aging out.
Has it just become more fragmented? Like there's just more competition? It'll be interesting to see like the whole
you have niches and people
genre,
that like this and that. And I would also argue that Valorant was always destined to have a low cap because it's a PC FPS. So you're ostracizing all the console and mobile users.
Brandon says, yeah, Paul, I agree. Interested in seeing what game overtakes it. That's a great question, Brandon. Roblox, right, seems to be the most obvious candidate in terms of that. Roblox has figured out how to do everything that Fortnite did well, but do it better, really. So it'll be interesting to see if Roblox. I mean, Jeff, do you know what Roblox? Because we don't have the data, really good data on Fortnite, but I can't remember what Roblox revenue was.
I'm not sure. DAU, it's something. It's like over 50 million.
Yeah, but we have like the Fortnite sort of Epic Game Store revenue number, right?
That's only through PC, so that's not going to give us the whole picture.
Fair. But I suspect that's the game, Brandon. To answer your question, is Roblox for you guys,
the OG listeners.